KETV Newswatch 7, chronicling the stories impacting our community. Stories making a difference. Stories that matter to you. This is KETV Newswatch 7's Chronicle.
We've had several conversations, talks will continue, but we have yet to reach an agreement on a path forward that would be acceptable for both sides.
Once we start talking about immigration and voting on immigration, we'll find 60 votes to make sure these DACA recipients' lives are not ruined.
We outlined a path forward on 4 issues: serious border security, an end to chain migration, the cancellation of the outdated and unsafe visa lottery, and a permanent solution to DACA. The President has been extraordinarily consistent on the immigration and what his priorities are.
There is a real commitment on both sides of the aisle in the Senate to work so hard to achieve a result.
I think we advanced the ball for the Dreamers. We're proud of the role we played.
But there's still no deal to protect Dreamers from deportation, although the White House plans to roll out its framework tomorrow. As we've heard, it'll include a pathway to citizenship for 1.8 million immigrants brought to the country as children living here illegally. In return, President Trump still wants a border wall and a crackdown on other undocumented immigrants already living in the country. Well, good morning. I'm Rob McCartney, and this is KETV Newswatch 7's Chronicle. This morning, we're taking an in-depth look at immigration and the work being done here to help those who are undocumented and living in Nebraska. First, though, I want to take a look at what's been going on nationally. Immigration issues have dominated President Trump's first year in office. He imposed a travel ban on citizens from several Muslim-majority countries. U.S. Supreme Court will decide on the legality of that later this year. He's tried to deny federal money for cities that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities, so-called sanctuary cities. And he temporarily ended protections for Dreamers. Though that move has been in the national spotlight for weeks as Congress tried and failed to avoid a government shutdown. Democrats wanted DACA, or protections for Dreamers, and included it in the budget bill. Well, last week, Congress removed DACA and passed another stopgap budget measure, which means lawmakers now have less than 3 weeks to come up with a comprehensive immigration reform plan. So where does that leave Nebraska? Local groups say they're doing their best to ignore the political rhetoric and instead are focused on helping immigrants and refugees. One of those groups, Justice for Our Neighbors, just changed its name and moved. It's now called the Immigrant Legal Center. And as KETV Newswatch 7's Chin Doan reports, it's all about clarifying its mission for anyone seeking assistance.
An office building that used to focus on the aging population is now the Immigration Legal Center.
We also hope to have like a play area that clients' children can play at and things while they're meeting.
Justice for Our Neighbors Nebraska bought the building near 42nd and Center to be more centrally located and to help with the growing immigration cases.
Last year we processed just over 3,400 cases of individuals from almost 50 different countries.
It's still stemming, almost done.
This couple from West Africa got help in getting asylum status. They asked to hide their identity and fear of persecution.
Like right now, I know my children doesn't have to run away from anything. They're going to have a free life and they can have a better future that I didn't have.
The nonprofit says with 55,000 undocumented immigrants in Nebraska and changes to the DACA program, plus the end of temporary protected status for several countries, staff are ready to expand.
We see it as our mission to help them navigate a very complex immigration legal system.
Now, a new name, plus 26 staff members and a 26,000 square foot building.
In the fall, once renovations are complete, staff will then move down here to the first floor. That opens up rental opportunities for the 3rd and 2nd floors.
That's income, along with $2.4 million already raised as part of a capital campaign.
It's really humbling and is a great reminder of how lucky we are.
In Omaha, Chin Doan, KETV Newswatch 7.
And joining me now to talk more about these changes and what's happening nationally is Emiliano Lerda. He is Executive Director of the Immigrant Legal Center, and Shane Ellison. You saw them both earlier. He's the center's Legal Director. Welcome, gentlemen, both of you.
Thank you.
I want to start, Emiliano. What is the Immigrant Legal Center's mission?
Our mission is to welcome immigrants to the community by providing immigration legal services, education, and advocacy. So we provide a lot of immigration legal services in family-based immigration case types as well as humanitarian case types. And then we do immigration education for the immigrant community and the non-immigrant community. And our advocacy, we look at it as a technical support with our legal services.
How so?
So we have a type of case that is called the impact litigation type of case, where we take a case that can set a precedent for a whole category of people. And with that, we do our advocacy. We also work with both Democrats and Republicans, both at the state level and at the federal level, to help them with any draft of legislation. If they need help drafting an amendment or if they have any technical questions, we provide that support.
So you're nonpartisan?
We're nonpartisan.
Right. Now let's talk about a couple of the headlines. President Trump's support for a plan to provide a pathway to citizenship. Just heard about that. Hundreds of thousands of young immigrants. What's your reaction to that?
We certainly support a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, but obviously, as any other legislation, this is a framework that President Trump has announced. I think the devil is in the details, and so we'll have to wait and see how the legislation ends up being drafted. And as you know, there's a lot of negotiating going on in Washington, D.C.
Ton of it.
That's
Another
right.
headline, Shane, is how DACA or Dreamers were part of the negotiations in the budget stopgap discussions. It seemed almost like they were being used as pawns, the DACA. Did you see it? Do you see it that way?
Well, you know, I think it was an important issue. It was a priority to address that issue. And so I think it was an opportunity to talk about the need to provide a solution, a permanent pathway to status for DACA youth. We're talking about young people who were brought to the country at very young ages. And so it's a right thing to do to talk about a solution. You know, a solution wasn't achieved during these last round of talks, but we remain hopeful that lawmakers will find a pathway forward to protect them.
U.S. Supreme Court's going to hear the arguments on the travel ban later this year, presumably. Thoughts on that? What are you hoping?
Well, you know, we're hopeful that the Supreme Court takes a close look at this issue and ensures that we continue to be a nation that welcomes immigrants from all over the world and does not decipher or distinguish or discriminate against countries based upon religion or other inappropriate considerations.
You know, you follow the legal process. What's the mood in the legal community then? I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I hate to handicap what the Supreme Court's going to do, because usually I'm wrong, but...
Right. Well, and you know, I left my crystal ball at home, and so I'm not I'm not sure what the Supreme Court's going to do, but we're hopeful that it would be a victory for immigrants.
Emiliano, it's election year. House, we have houses up for election. One of our U.S. senators up for election as well. If they were sitting right here, if the candidates were sitting right here, what would you tell them? What would you want to tell them?
I'd like to first ask them questions about, you know, what their vision is and what their motivations are. I'd like to tell them that this country was built by immigrants, and I think that it is fair to protect the security of our country. But it's also important for us to enact legislation that is congruent with our principles. And these are the principles that have made this country a beautiful country to live in. And as an immigrant myself, I have benefited from the opportunities I have found, and I know a lot of other immigrants that want to do the same thing. They want to make this community a better place for everyone. So when we look at legislation, we need to look at legislation that honors that tradition that this country has had, those principles, and that also keeps families together.
Everybody will agree the country's made with immigrants, basically. Most will, I assume. Some of the folks I talk with, they're really frustrated. I mean, they're frustrated. Our borders, they say, are too porous. They say not enough is being done, or not enough enforcement is being done, you know, regulations being done consistently. And they say not enough is being done to crack down on unauthorized people here. And then if you look at a crime being committed by someone who's here illegally, it just seems to reinforce their argument. What do you say to them?
What I say to that is that I think a lot of people sometimes confuse the problem that we have with security, of the lack of security that we may have in our community with immigration. And the vast majority of immigrants are all very well-intended, educated people that want to make a difference. They want to provide an opportunity, just like pioneers did. They want to provide a better opportunity for their children. The solution to crime is not to really build a wall. So in other words, why do we have porous borders? It's not because we don't have a good enough wall. The reality is that our immigration legal system is broken. And I think everybody agrees on that point, both Democrats and Republicans. It's broken. And that system is the root cause of having so many people that are pushed. They have no option. Nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice my life, my well-being, and that of my family for a better future. No. They don't, they're not people cutting corners. These are people that are hardworking people that are willing to risk their life to come to the country and do the right thing. It's just that our system currently doesn't give anybody a line or an opportunity to pursue so that they don't come in without documents. And so with that, I think the solution for crime is if you're worried about a safe community, I think the solution is to fix our immigration legal system, not to build a wall.
There's a lot of emotion in this. The dialogue's becoming more charged, more inflamed, has been over the last couple of years. For example, a television ad just came out in support of President Trump's Get Tough on Immigration stance. I want to get y'all's reaction to it first, but take a look and see what you think.
That's illegal immigrant Luis Bracamontes, charged with murdering 2 police officers.
I wish I killed one of those motherfuckers.
It's pure evil. President Trump is right. Build the wall. Deport criminals. Stop illegal immigration now. Democrats who stand in our way will be complicit in every murder committed by illegal immigrants. President Trump will fix our border and keep our families safe.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Jane, what do you think? Is that accurate? Is it fair?
You know, I think, Rob, that the image that's being portrayed there is highly misleading. Undocumented immigrants that live in the United States, numerous studies have shown that the level of crime sort of committed versus individuals who are native born, that you have very low levels of crime being committed in the immigrant community. Overwhelmingly, as Emiliano said, our immigrant clients that we're serving are individuals that are hardworking. They want to get in compliance with the law. Oftentimes the laws are constructed in a way that there's no line to get into. And so our task as attorneys is to help our clients navigate a very complex legal system so that they can get in compliance with the law. The other thing I would just mention about the ad that I don't think is accurate is that right now existing under current law, there are a number of provisions that already provide for ways in which immigrants who've committed serious crimes will be deported from the United States. Mm-hmm. So to use that ad as a way to oppose DACA youth or suggest that we shouldn't come up with a pathway forward for DACA youth is just simply misleading. You know, DACA youth have been vetted. They've been checked. They've gone through background checks, security checks, and they wouldn't qualify for relief if they had serious criminal convictions. So to pair up the DACA issue with a law enforcement issue of crime, it's just it's a false equivalency.
Yeah, but as people see that, do you think that hurts, or could it actually help your cause with the reverse psychology?
Well, you know, I'm not sure what kind of the reaction is going to be, but obviously, you know, those of us in the advocacy community, we're not pushing for any kind of protection to keep individuals who've committed serious crimes inside the United States. That's not our point. That's not our mission. We're looking for ways to help individuals who want to get in compliance with the law and who don't otherwise have criminal backgrounds. We want a pathway forward for them. They want an opportunity to get right with the law. Right.
And along those lines, and with all the talk that's been going on, finally now, have you all been busier? I mean, people just knocking down your doors?
Yes, we have been busier with calls from prospective clients, individuals that are trying to understand what all these changes that are being discussed may mean for them and their families, but also busy because a lot of service providers, people that work in schools, in social service, in churches, a lot of people are trying to better understand how can they be helpful to the immigrant community. So we do get a lot of requests for educational presentations, which is one of our prongs of our mission. So we do a lot of educational presentations. So it's not just busy with direct immigration legal services, but also with education.
Okay, we're going to continue the discussion. Up next, we want to talk about helping undocumented immigrants here, helping them find a path to citizenship, talking maybe horror stories, success stories. You're watching KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle.
I'm not sure of anything. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen.
This is my first marriage, my only marriage, and I didn't see it ever getting ripped apart like this. I mean, I said till death, and I didn't say till you're deported.
A Michigan doctor sits in an immigration detention center for a misdemeanor he committed when he was 17, facing deportation even though his parents brought him to the U.S. from Poland 40 years ago. And then there's this Chicago father of 3 kept in federal custody for nearly a year.
Immigration authorities raided his home because of bad information they got from the Chicago Police Department labeling him a gang member.
Tens of thousands of immigrants living in the U.S. are living in fear. They're worried agents from ICE will find them, take them from their families, send them back to their home country. Joining me once again are Emiliano Lerda, and he's executive director of the Immigrant Legal Center, Shane Ellison, who's the center's legal director. How common are stories like that where people are living in fear?
We see that a lot. I mean, that's something that I always come home and I talk to my wife and my children. I tell them to think about the fact that there are families right now that are having a conversation over dinner about, you know, if mom and dad are deported, then you may have to stay with an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor. And that's really sad to think that there are people, not only people living in fear, but children are living with that uncertainty that, you know, something may happen to, you know, where they come back home and they don't see their parents.
I imagine that conversation is fairly typical. Is there a typical client at the center?
Yeah, our most common case types would be all of our clients are within 150% of the federal poverty guidelines, which means it's an income of about $35,000 a year for a family of 4. And the typical client is probably a woman who is a victim of domestic violence, or is a child who has been abused, abandoned, or neglected and qualifies for a legal remedy that is called special immigrant juvenile status. We also do a lot of humanitarian cases for immigrants that are being persecuted in their home country, so they may qualify for asylum or refugee status.
And do they come from all around the world, I imagine? I mean, you're from Argentina, right?
I'm from Argentina originally, that's right. Last year, we provided services for immigrants from 47 different countries. So yes, we serve people from all over the world.
And Shane, what are you hearing? What kind of stories do you hear when they come to you originally and say, this is my story? What's the most common story?
Yeah, there's a wide variety of folks who are coming to the United States for a variety of different reasons. You know, I certainly think individuals who are seeking to be reunited with family members, that's a very common scenario. Individuals who are fleeing poverty, or as Emiliano said, persecution is another very common scenario. And individuals who've been victimized and are seeking relief from those crimes, very, very common cases, both in our world and I think in the immigration world generally.
So you're trying to help them. Do you ever run up against a wall and just like, I can't get you any more help? And if you do, I assume you do, everybody does, then what happens?
Well, you know, we do our best to screen our clients thoroughly to try to find some kind of pathway or option forward. You know, we do occasionally have those situations when we're meeting with the client and there are no options that we're aware of. And so we have to do that very difficult part of our job, which is to deliver the news that for now, you know, there are no options. And so that certainly does happen, and that's a difficult thing for us to.
But there are success stories.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So in our organization, we're very proud of the fact that when we select a case and we push to go forward with it, we continue to litigate that case until we're either successful or we can't go further. And so as a consequence of that diligent work and careful case selection, we have a success rate on average of about 98%. So when we select a case and push forward with it, in the overwhelming majority of times, we're successful in that case.
Gotcha. Emiliano, the end result, I assume, is to become a naturalized citizen here for many people going through. What do you tell them as far as what they should expect as the process? It's what they're going to do, what they're going to go through, how much it costs, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's going to take a long time, okay. And that's part of the problem that we have. It's going to take a lot of time, and there will be a lot of fees, because even though we don't charge any fees for our services, there's still a lot of fees to be paid as we are applying for the different benefits. And then the other thing is to learn English, study English, and brush up on civics. So when they take the test, they can also kind of pass the test, both the written, the spoken test, and then the history test.
I know some families who are here, English is the second language, and at home they speak native language, but then they try to make a point whenever they're out and about to speak English. Do you recommend that? Because I know that's a huge frustrating issue for a lot of people who English is the only language.
Yeah, look, I think that people shouldn't forget their roots, and they should celebrate their uniqueness and their culture and their language. But it's easier. I think it helps build bridges and bring people together when you can communicate with each other. So I always encourage people to learn English, but I also encourage people to speak only English to learning Spanish. Because I think, in my house, my wife, she's from Northeast Iowa, and I know she really appreciates the fact that she has been able to learn how to speak Spanish. And when she travels around the world, she can speak to people in Spanish, and when she meets people that speak Spanish here, she can talk to them in Spanish too.
I think you're right, it knocks down a lot of doors. Hey Shane, if someone is seeing this and they are tempted to come forward, someone who's living here, possibly illegally or undocumented, briefly, what do you say to them? How do you convince them to say, come see us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing that folks who are affected by the various changing news and things like that is to get in touch with an immigration lawyer that really specializes in this area of law so that they can know what options are available. And so if folks don't have the resources to hire a private attorney, we certainly encourage them to reach out to organizations like the Immigrant Legal Center to find out if there are options for them to move forward.
And finally, in just a couple seconds here, Emiliano, you think we'll ever get past the divide we are in right now?
I sure hope so, because I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. And it's the same thing that ancestors of those people that have been here for generations wanted. It's the same thing that the pioneers wanted when they risked their life in the treacherous trips across the country, looking for better opportunities for themselves and for their future generations. Really, they were sacrificing their own self for the best interest of the future generations. And so I think we should. I think it will be. There will be a time. I think we ask our leaders to please to be the best role models that they can be, and not try to divide us around this issue, but try to bring us together.
Very good. All right, Emiliano, Shane, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to be right back with some final thoughts. First, though, I wanted to share some of your comments. David Shemek said after watching our show on terror threats in 2018, he thinks we're a lot safer country now that we have a president like Donald Trump. Janelle McCann also watched the Chronicles. She said she objected to one of the comments made by Congressman Don Bacon, saying United States citizens should not have to choose between funding the strength of this country, such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education, domestic security, to fund foreign defenses and use of the United States military around the world. Nancy Joseph had a question after seeing our show last week on legislature's economic agenda, writing, how can giving away more tax incentives to big businesses to grow our economy be any benefit when we do not have enough employees for these companies? Look at our state unemployment rate. It has a great impact on decisions with companies coming into Nebraska. We are just giving away good money. We'll be right back. You're watching KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle. This morning, we've been talking about immigration, looking at whether Congress can come up with a compromise and pass meaningful reform in the next few weeks. Also looked at efforts by the newly named Immigrant Legal Center to help people living in Nebraska find a path towards citizenship. And coming up in 2 weeks, We Are Dreamers, a documentary about the issues facing DACA recipients, will make its debut. It will be shown Tuesday, February 6th and Wednesday, February 7th on the College of St. Mary campus. Showtimes both nights are at 7 in Gross Auditorium. Center's also teaming up with the Rose Theater and actor Daniel Beatty to create a one-of-a-kind performance piece. That's Friday, February 16th and Saturday the 17th at 7. On Sunday the 18th, it's at 2. Tickets are free for both the performance and the documentary. Remember, if you missed any part of this show or you want to watch it again, it's online right now at KETV.com. Just go to our homepage, click on the menu button, and then look for Chronicle. I'm Rob McCartney. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here next Sunday.